On Saturday afternoon, Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, also qualifying very well in the normally aspirated Lola, had a tremendous crash right in front of the pits when his left rear tyre deflated, sending him into the pit wall, destroying the car, but a great testament to the modern Grand Prix car that he escaped absolutely unscathed.
Welcome back to the Grand Prix of Mexico. The video you're looking at, they are the remains of Philippe Alliot's Lola from the accident on Saturday. As you can see, the carbon fiber chassis held up very well, saving Alliot from any injuries. All three corners taken off the car, only one remaining. Moving along the side, you can see the cooling system has been damaged extensively, and the rear of the car, the gearbox, totally gone. Engine is intact, but of course, this is a very strong part of the car, and as you can see, an amazing thing has happened. They have built a new car around that chassis. The only thing really left of that car is the chassis and Philippe Alliot. Talking to Alliot this morning, he says, "John, I feel fine. I do not have any injuries, a bruised leg." And he is a very brave man to be down there on the grid. As far as looking at the other cars here lined up in Mexico, there's virtually no story whatsoever. Everyone is in good shape. A bunch of confusion around Alboretto's Ferrari. We tried to find out what was wrong, and of course we did not get much information. Back to you, Chris, for the grid.
Well, thank you, John Bisognano. And let's see now how the drivers will face the starters' green light in this, the 11th Grand Prix of Mexico. On the pole for the fourth time this year, 20th of his career at 127.659 miles an hour, the fast Brazilian, Ayrton Senna, the fastest man in Formula One these days. Alongside will be his Marlboro McLaren Honda teammate Alain Prost of France, a 30-time winner in Grand Prix. Together, 37 wins for the front row. Lining up in third starting position will be the speedy Austrian Gerhard Berger and the Italian racing red Ferrari number 28, a real comer on the Formula One scene. In fourth starting position will be Nelson Piquet of Brazil, a favorite here in Mexico. 3 world champions to his credit. He's driving this year for Lotus. Next in the starting order will be the second Ferrari driver, car 27, Michele Alboreto, rumored to be unhappy. And then Satoru Nakajima of Japan in his best qualifying ever for Lotus. America's Eddie Cheever looking for his first Grand Prix victory driving in Arrows. Behind Cheever in the lineup, Alessandro Nannini of Italy, first year in a very fine automobile, number 19. Smiling Derek Warwick of Great Britain says he may come IndyCar racing next year. He's next in the lineup. And then young Italian Ivan Capelli in the March Judd. He's a comer, too. Belgian star Terry Pootsen, Nannini's teammate in one of the Benetton cars. And then Andrea de Cesaris. He used to be called the Crasherist, but he's been behaving this year, number 22. Philippe Alliot, remarkable in his Lola Ford, showing up this morning. Nigel Mansell is next in his Williams Judd. Bernd Schneider in his first race for West Zaxby, and then Brazilian Mauricio Gugelmin in the Leighton House March. Ricardo Patrese in the Williams Judd, along with Piercarlo Ginzani in the West Zaxby. Philippe Streff of France in an AGS, and René Arnoux of France in Ligier. Then Gabriele Tarquini of Italy in a Coloni, and Yannick Dalmas of France in a Lola. Alex Caffey of Italy in a Dallara, and Stefan Johansson of Sweden in a Ligier. Luis Perez Sala in a Minardi, and at the tail end, Oscar Larawi of Argentina in a Eurorun. The circuit here was recently renamed in honor of Mexico's famous racing brothers, Ricardo and Pedro Rodriguez, both of whom gave their lives to this dangerous sport. David, what about the specifics?
Well, the vital statistics are it's 2.74 miles to the lap with 14 turns, and according to the drivers, very, very slippery. There will be 68 laps or 186.7 miles around this very tricky course. Here we see Alain Prost on a starting lap. Going into turn 1, that's the Solana section. It's a right, left, right. They go in at about 60 miles an hour, and as they exit this last right-hand turn, he'll be up to around about 100 miles an hour again as he goes onto this long straight under the Cell Bridge there. Coming down to the Estadio section, this is entered through a very fast fourth gear. Here we see him, fourth gear, left-hand turn, braking in that turn down to second gear as he continues through the Estadio section. 2 right-hand corners there, very tight. Both in second gear. He might go into third between them. Now he's coming into the S's section. Out of second gear and up to third through this long right-hander. This is turn 8. As he approaches turn 9, that normally aspirated cars are now flat out from here on because these S-bends gradually get faster and faster as you go through them. A very, very important and tricky section here. Now approaching turn 13, which is a very fast left-hander. He'll be up to 5th gear here. and approaches 160 miles an hour as he comes down to the Peraltada. 180-degree bank turn. The cars maintain about 160 to 165 miles an hour as they go through that corner. One of the most daunting in Grand Prix racing. And Alain Prost crosses the line, 121.16. That'll be about an average lap speed.
All right, thank you very much, David. And the weather here in Mexico City is changing by the minute. A few minutes ago, it was bright and sunny at 86 degrees. The track temperature was 93. A slight wind 6 knots from the west. And where they said an hour ago there was no chance of rain, there's now 50% chance of rain. Very hot and very humid. All right, David, how's this race going to finish up? Give me the top 6.
Well, the top 6, as I see it, will be Senna and Prost. I just don't see anybody stopping those two. I think Nelson Piquet in the Camel Lotus may well run third. Derek Warwick's run well in practice, could come fourth. Nannini, the first normally aspirated car. And then just for luck, I'll put Alboreto there in the Ferrari, although probably I should say Berger.
Okay, John Visignano down in the pits has chosen Gerhard Berger over Nelson Piquet, Eddie Cheever, Alain Prost, Alessandro Nannini, and Derek Warwick. And as far as I'm concerned, this is going to be number 31 for Alain Prost, with Berger second, Senna third, Piquet fourth, Cheever fifth, and Alboreto sixth in the point. Well, there you have the picks of the announcing crew here in the ESPN booth. The cars are on their formation lap. This is actually one lap of the race because of the strict fuel allotment. This lap counts. The race has started, but not the competitive portion. And they're coming around the track now. We'll be lining up. We're watching the lights. The red light will come on, and sometime between 4 and 7 seconds after that red light comes on, the green will come on. What are they thinking about now, David?
Well, just right now, they're getting themselves psyched up. We saw Ayrton Senna sitting on the grid just a few moments ago looking incredibly composed, but I imagine already his heartbeat is approaching the 160 mark, and as soon as the flag drops, it'll be up around about the 180, 190 mark, which of course is extremely high. Just a few specs once again as we see them coming through the last of these very fast S's. This is a wide track, 50 feet wide all the way around, but very, very slippery, especially if you get offline. 68 laps, which will translate to these guys for about 1,000 gear shifts over the 186 odd miles of the race. And here we see them coming around the last corner, preparing to grid.
At the last moment before they went off on this formation lap, the tire warming blankets were taken off the tires and heat them up to a certain temperature. And during the practice session, some drivers said that because some of their tires weren't heated equally, they had trouble handling. Is this a serious problem, David?
Well, it's just another part of perfection of modern racing. I mean, when I started racing, you didn't warm up the tires. The only way you warmed them up was on the base lap. Now these guys have their tires really, really heated up before, so that the moment that green light comes on, they can go absolutely flat out and know the tires are going to be up to snuff when they get to turn 1.
Okay, on your left is Ayrton Senna on the pole, and on your right is his teammate Alain Prost. It's the fast lane is on the left side of the screen. The odd-numbered cars, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The even-numbered cars are on the right. There's your light up in the corner now. And we're waiting now for the signal to start the 11th Grand Prix of Mexico here at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City.
Tremendous tension for these front guys as they're still waiting for those last few cars to come and fill this spot. Now we've got some yellow flags. Obviously a problem somewhere. So all engines are shut off. There we see the safety car pulling in, but that was a long and very protracted collecting on the grid. I don't know quite what the yellow flags.
That's John Visignano. Can you tell us what the problem is?
Yes, Chris, what we saw is Nannini in the Benetton waving his hands furiously at the start. Of course, that is the safety valve the starter has. He sees all the drivers. He has a clear view of them. If there's a trouble with one of the cars, they will be waving their arms, and of course that is a no-go situation. So we do have a delay right off the start here in Mexico. They will try and get this field through another warm-up lap just as soon as possible.
Okay, Chris, you seem to be the expert on rules around here.
I'll tell you, the rules.
What happens now?
The rules in Formula One racing are really complicated. There's a book of them. If the race is stopped, as I said before, the race actually started when they were waved off on the formation lap. So one lap of this race has been run, which means now that you cannot, the green light has come on, you cannot make any changes. You cannot change cars. You can only do that if the race is stopped after 2 laps have been run. So they may be watching on. This was a problem that faced Ayrton Senna in Rio de Janeiro, when under these exact circumstances, he changed cars and was later disqualified. So down there at Alessandro Nannini's car, that's the Benetton car. that he's driving. We're looking here at Philippe Alliot's Lola. This is the car that crashed yesterday so spectacularly, and all of the parts flew off of it, and it was a remarkable look. Now, there are those tire warmers that we spoke about earlier, going back on the tires to keep them up to an operating temperature. Formula One racing has become truly high-tech these days. It's really unbelievable how scientific it is. There they are, and these require tremendous amounts of electricity to heat them up.
Every single one of these cars relies on Honda power, because all those tire warmers the blankets are run off power, which is given by those little Honda motors. So all these cars got Honda power.
Okie doke, David. We'll be back for more of the 11th Annual Mexican Grand Prix after commercial messages.
3 minutes.
The decision to get this race going away again. This is a very important series, and there are many people who would like to be in it that can't make it for one reason or another. And for those who are accepted, they have to meet a very stringent set of rules. The ruling body in Formula One, FIS, has developed a reputation for strict handling of rules violators. For the second straight race, Italian Stefano Modina's Eurobrun Ford was disqualified for slight violations of the rules. Here, his rear wing was 4 millimeters out of place. That's about 1/8 of an inch. And last time out, he failed to obey a signal to stop at the scale, and he was disqualified for 2 straight races. Stefano Modena has been disqualified and is not in the field. Right now, their
Tire warmers are coming off.
Spectators today include Jonathan Palmer and Julian Bailey of the Tyrrell team. They did not qualify fast enough to make the race. Youngster Nicola Laurini in the Osella is not in the race, not having qualified fast enough. And Spaniard Adrian Campos in a Minardi is also watching from the sidelines, not having qualified fast enough. And now we go through the same procedure again that we saw a little bit ago. The engines are started. They will sit here at the line. And it will be
one more formation lap.
Formation lap.
So we've got to go through that nerve-wracking tension again for these drivers. This does make things very tough on the drivers, there's no doubt about it, because you get yourself really psyched up for the start, and then to have to stop and sit there for 4 or 5 minutes, then go around and do another warm-up lap, and then go through that tension of waiting for that light to go from red to green. I mean, it's very tough.
In order to observe the fuel regulations, the race distance now will be shortened by 1 lap to allow for this formation lap the cars are taking right at the moment. But it's interesting, the Hondas have dominated the racing so far this year. The Honda factory cleared the air here during the weekend with an official announcement as to exactly how many people are on hand to service just the engines in the 2 McLarens and the 2 Lotus cars. There are 10 engineers and 10 mechanics, plus 2 clerical personnel assigned to Formula One, or 11 people per car, just for engines. The release noted that the engineers are all under age 30 and worked for 3 years in the field before returning to Japan as factory managers. So this is part of Honda's training program for its factory managers. It's interesting. That's why Honda apparently is spending $50 million a year on its racing program.
Well, the current managing director of Honda R&D and of Honda Motor Company Limited was in fact a mechanic on the Honda V12 that I drove in the 1968 Italian Grand Prix, which was my only appearance in a Honda Formula One car. There we see them going through those S's. You can see these first S's are pretty tight. This is turn 9. It's a little bit slacker. They go from 3rd to 4th through this corner, and then turns 10, 11, 12, and 13, all progressively get faster and faster. Very, very tricky, and very important to get those right to get a good lap. And if you get stuck behind a slower car through those S's, there really is no way around, because this track is very slippery offline.
You know, aside from the line, David, I think this is one of the better tracks from a safety standpoint. Look at those wide verges. When a car runs off the track, there's lots of room for the driver to hopefully get it back under control. And there are no wire catch benches that I can see around it. A few rubber tires in certain key places. Julian Bailey ran into one yesterday. But I would say that of the Grand Prix circuits around the world, this has to rank as one of the safest.
Well, all of them are pretty safe now. A lot of regulations have been brought into effect, and we could certainly see some of those regulations enforced. It'd be nice to see them enforced at a lot of the US circuits. Of course, the ones that have kart races are a lot better than they used to be, but this place is very safe.
Here we are slowing down. I'm coming back into the starting, and remember that the tail end of the field has to come to a complete stop before the red light comes on. And as I said earlier, the race distance now has been reduced by 1 lap to accommodate this formation lap. Ayrton Senna pulls his number 12 Marlboro McLaren into position, followed by the balance of the field. Gerhard Berger, number 28. And next in line is Nelson Piquet, the world driving champion from Brazil. And you can see way back in the back end, the last few cars are ready.
Is Senna getting ready? Cars still coming around that Paratelda corner there into view. So now the front drivers are hovering. Should I put it into first gear? They've got their foot on the clutch, legs starting to shake and quiver now. They'll be putting it in first gear now, I'm sure, just so they can find the right one.
No.
We don't see the light this time.
There's the green fires, the red, and we're almost ready to start. And there it is. The race is underway. And look at the skirmish on the track. Boy, oh boy. Well, look at the Williams Hondas come through the track there. Who is it out front? Look at
Nelson Piquet making a great run down the inside, overtook Prost, and I think he's going to try and take the lead. No, he's going to try, but not quite made it.
What a start. I tell you, that's street fighting at its absolute best, only this isn't a street circuit. And one of the McLarens, very hard to see the tint on our screen here is shade off with McLarens were green on yesterday's screen.
I think that's Senna in the lead, I think. I can't see properly quite.
No, it's Alain Prost in the lead. Piquet second and Senna is third. The man that I picked to win the race has started off already.
Well, Piquet, too, has made a very, very good start, which he needed to do because he needs to stay right up with those leaders if he wants any hope of staying in contention for this race, which I'm sure he really does. The Camel Honda Lotus having a pretty grim season so far.
Well, they're stringing out now, one behind the other. And you sort of take a deep breath when you see the side-by-side stuff move over into one line.
Of course, here they're particularly bad because that start is so fast. It's such a long way down to turn one, which is so slow.
Isn't that a great shot with all the serpentine cars weaving through there? The Mexican television has done a great job, and the man that shot Alio's crash deserves a medal, I think, for being on the stick.
Now look at the lead that Prost has got there. Senna having a go, gets round inside Piquet easily, and Nakajima now lying in 4th spot in the second Lotus.
And those are the same engines. The top 3 cars here, the top 4 cars, all have the Honda V6 engines. The Ferraris are 5th and 6th, and then the Arrows cars are 7th and 8th. It's amazing how the cars run so close to their teammates. And from a performance standpoint.
The 2 Ferraris now being boxed up by Nakajima in the second Camel Lotus. They'll be wanting to get round him as soon as they can. He's got all the power in the world, so it's going to be easier for him to hold them off. He's got slightly more power than the Ferraris, but they'll want to be hustling past him in the twisty bits of this circuit, which is what they're approaching now, the twistiest bit.
I wonder if that not making the race at Monte Carlo sped up now. Here's Felipe Alio in the pits with that car, and it's hard to think that car would be competitive after that crash yesterday. But it was a great effort.
Having to go there around the inside of Nakajima, who held him off as they come into the S's, and I don't think he's got a cat and hex chance of getting around him as they go through these S's. Prost, of course, at this stage will be intent on increasing his lead over his teammate just as much as possible, because he knows if they get down to a real driver-to-driver confrontation, at the moment Senna seems to be showing just a little bit more form than Alain Prost.
I just wonder about the domination these Honda engine McLaren cars have had. There have been races Rio de Janeiro, in Imola, Italy, Monte Carlo, now here in Mexico. There is 2 practice sessions on Fridays, 2 practice sessions on Saturdays, and a warm-up session on Sunday morning. And in every case, every one of those cases, the 2 McLarens have been at the top of the charts.
And quite easily. Even this morning in the unofficial warm-up, again they headed the charts very easily. So the 2 McLaren Hondas 1st and 2nd, and the 2 Lotus Hondas 3rd and 4th.
You made the comment, David, yesterday as you walked around the track that you watched Alain Prost in practice driving very, very deep into the first turn at the end of the long main straightaway. That's going to be tough on his brakes over the course of the race?
Not really, because that's the only place where they use the brakes here very, very hard. But it certainly tests his depth perception. All these drivers' depth perception is tested to the absolute ultimate. They get there at about 205, and they have to slow down to about 70. So it's a very, very severe bit of braking. Here we see him again entering those S's.
Watch Prost here, the leader. He'll use the entire racetrack. He moves his left front wheel on the white line going into the turns. Here he's touching the inside of the turn. Here he comes by touching the other side of the track. Back across the track, touching the left side. They use up the whole racetrack, no matter how wide it is. This track is...
That's what it's for. I mean, the track there to be used.
Right.
That black asphalt is to be used. You're not supposed to get on the green stuff at the side. That's decoration.
I know that.
But the black stuff you're supposed to stay on. Unfortunately, when you get offline here and try and use extra track, it doesn't work. When they go from side to side, they're only using the track that everybody's using, but if you get offline here, it's very, very slippery. There we see them extending their lead over the Lotuses, which at last view was still holding off the two. No, there's a Ferrari's got by Nakajima. So Piquet still lies third, and Berger, I think that is, has crept up now to fourth in the first of the Ferraris. Alboreto is going to have to now struggle to get around Nakajima. Prost putting on a great display here.
One of the great worries about Formula One 1988 before the season got underway would be fuel. There's a difference, 2.755 seconds between leader Alain Prost and second man Ayrton Senna at this point early in the going. The big worry was fuel, and it doesn't seem to be too much of a concern about fuel now. And we'll be back for more of the 11th annual Grand Prix of Mexico at the Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez after these important commercial messages. And Alain Prost continues to lead the Mexican Grand Prix over his teammate Ayrton Senna by almost 3 seconds, with Nelson Piquet in a Lotus third, Gerhard Berger in a Ferrari fourth, Japanese driver Satoru Nakajima fifth in a Lotus, and Michele Alboreto sixth in a Ferrari. They're in the points. And from Indianapolis, Rick Mears has won his third 500, averaging 144.809 miles an hour in his Pennzoil Chevy. And second place to Scotsman Jim Crawford in a March powered by an American stock block Buick engine, a remarkable achievement by the Scotsman Jim Crawford. Third place going to four-time winner Al Unser Sr., Mears' teammate, in another PC-17 Chevrolet. And Michael Andretti was fourth in his Preco March Cosworth, with Bobby Rahal, a former national champion and Indy winner, fifth in a March Judd. Though many crashes took place, there were no serious injuries in the Indy 500, we're happy to say. Okay, David.
Well, here we see Piquet being hotly pursued by Gerhard Berger there as they go to that fast left-hand fourth geared corner down to the second gear. They're now in the Estadio region. There's about 35,000 spectators can see just this one section of track. And old Nelson Piquet having his work cut out here, holding off Berger.
You know, you talk about the spectators, David, here. There are 33 grandstands around this racetrack with a total seating capacity of over 100,000. Now, whether all the seats are taken, I can't say, but they really know how to put up the grandstands here, and it's a large crowd is on hand for this running of the Grand Prix of Mexico.
Well, there's a titanic battle going on between these two. Piquet is not going to let Berger through, because if he does, he knows he'll never see him again. Down in the pits, we've got John Bisignano, who's with Philippe Alliot, had that big crash yesterday.
Thank you, David Hobbs. Philippe, a bad day yesterday, but you were all ready to go today. What put you out of the race in just one lap?
Because it was my monocoque from yesterday, and after one lap, I feel the car in the long straight very dangerous, and I stopped, and one piece in the back was broken. And I think the team tried to rebuild the car after this very important accident, and it was not reasonable to do the race. And it's better for me to be here now.
Of course, it was a great effort by your team. I'm sure you're looking forward to Montreal and Detroit.
Yeah, now the team have to rebuild another car. But I'm very happy because the car here was very quick. And for the end of the season, I think it's very good for the team.
Philippe Alliot all ready to go in 2 weeks' time.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, John. And Ayrton Senna can't seem to get within 3 seconds of leader Alain Prost, as the excitement right now on the track back here for this battle for third place, held right now by Nelson Piquet, with the Austrian driver Gerhard Berger in the number 28 Ferrari right drafting him down the track.
Yeah, Gerhard Berger putting the pressure on Piquet here. Just a little note on Alliot there. Of course, one of the things that these guys have to do in these Formula One races is the starting money is graduated on qualifying times. And for Philippe Alliot to start today was probably worth about $70,000 where he started in this race. So obviously it's very important for them to get him back on the grid.
$70,000 today, David, not for the season.
Just for one lap. And here's Berger having a go down the inside at the end of that long straight. It's a tough break, that, because it's they approach that at about 200 miles an hour, And really, to outbrake somebody there is very, very tricky. You've got to get it right.
You've got to have a lot of respect for the man you're racing with to run this fast, this close. Right, David?
Certainly have. A tremendous amount of respect, both of them. Piquet is going to make it difficult for him to pass, but I don't think he's about to do anything dangerous. And Berger is not going to get into one of these situations where he's halfway alongside and then turn into the corner. I don't think. Depends how desperate he gets, doesn't it, really?
That's right. And the Honda engines obviously are superior to the Ferraris, but the chassis and the McLarens are superior to the Lotus and the Ferrari. So it's a shame, really, that a driver's abilities here are inhibited by the shortcomings of his car.
Well, I mean, you've just seen the same thing at Indy, too. The car that Mears was driving was vastly superior to anybody else's car there, and his teammates Sullivan and Al Senior, I don't know what happened to those because we haven't had tape here, but same sort of thing there. Technology led the field at Indy, and technology is leading the field here. It just so happens that in both these instances, Indianapolis and here, the best drivers also have control of that best technology. So for the others, of course, it just makes it worse all the time. Let's see if Berger can do it this time. He drafts him, see, just like NASCAR racing. He drafts him right down that straight. He definitely picks up speed. The thing is, pulling out and outbraking him at the end is the difficult bit.
But look at
and pulled it off.
He did it.
Terrific job.
You talk about experience. Berger's had this is his 55th Grand Prix start. He's won 3 times, whereas Piquet is in his 145th Grand Prix, and he's won 20 of them. So he's got a lot more experience, but it didn't help him, did it?
Berger is one of those young lads that came on very, very strongly. He did a few saloon car races, a little bit of Formula 2, and just went straight into Formula 1, and really got all his experience driving Formula 1 cars. Quite amazing, really, how well he did.
Now it'll be interesting to see whether Berger can pull away from Piquet. We'll be back with more of the Mexican Grand Prix after this. Okay, back at the Grand Prix, and we're seeing some traffic scenes here. Alain Prost continues to lead. He's built his lead over Ayrton Senna now to over 5 seconds. Gerhard Berger in a Ferrari is 3rd. Nelson Piquet in a Lotus is 4th, and Michele Alboreto in a Ferrari is 5th. And the dominance by the McLaren Honda the cars this year has been absolutely total. Not only have they won all 3 races run to date, but as I said before, been at the top of the charts. Looking over the history of Formula 1, the dominant years in Formula 1, back in 52 and 53, when Ferrari won 7 of 8. 55, Mercedes-Benz won 5 of 7. 1973, Lotus won 7 of 15. And in 1984, McLaren won 12 of 16.
Well, there you're seeing a tremendous dogfight here for the midfield positions. And that's Bernd Schneider in front there in the Zakspeed, which is a turbocharged West German car, 4-cylinder engine, holding off Patrese and Tarquini, the 2 Ligiers right behind him. And there is Nigel Mansell about to be lapped by Alain Prost. This is a position that Nigel Mansell must find pretty humiliating. On the pole last year and won the race, having a dreadful year this year in his Williams Judd from the previous years of his Williams Honda. Prost just swanning on his way. He's about to catch up with that group who are fighting so furiously, and they're not going to be really ready for him coming up behind him just left. There you see them, Schneider doing an incredible job. This is only the 2nd race he's qualified for in his life. First race.
I think it's the 1st race. You know, there are 5 first-year drivers in the race, including Schneider, Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil, Luis Peresala of Spain, Oscar Larawi of Argentina, and 2 others who didn't make the race.
The Ligiers, one of those, that's Arnoux, I think. Behind them is, in that Ferrari look-alike, that's Alex Caffey in the Dallara.
You can see how bumpy the track is from some of these shots, can't you, David? Tough on the driver's backside, isn't it?
Well, it's tough on everything, tough on the suspension. There's Senna going around Nigel. Poor old Nigel, he's not having a good day at all. Alain Prost, our leader, weaving his way through this slower traffic, all of which, of course, is bashing his brains out to beat each other, and it's very hard for them to just move out of the way and let Alain Prost through. It really is. Senna made up a little bit of ground, I think, in this traffic, which is not yet finished either.
I mean, to show you the superiority of the turbo cars over the race is 12 laps old, and the tail enders are being lapped by the leaders.
Oh, well and truly lapped. But this happens in all classes of racing. Even places like the Daytona 500, where you'd think it to be very close on a relatively simple track, the tail enders are always lapped within about 5 laps. There we see Prost taking a bit of an advantage of Tarquini's car there. He wanted a bit of a draft, so he just dropped in behind for a split second just to help him leapfrog. There's number 26. He's about to pass next. Stefan Johansson also having a terrible year driving the Ligier, having driven Ferrari and McLaren in the previous 2 years. Poor old Stefan is reduced to not qualifying for one of the races and qualifying dead last for a couple for this one.
The Ligiers are another car that was, the design was not quite right for the 1988 regulations, and it's, despite a number of interesting aspects of the car with fuel tanks here and there, it just isn't a fast racing car.
It's just not up to it aerodynamically. I think it's a bit overweight, which is very important to these Formula One people. And one way and another, the car is not very inspiring. And in fact, Johansson qualified 24th out of 26. Not the sort of place that Stefan Johansson is used to finding himself.
It's interesting to watch Alain Prost as to where he chooses to lap the tail enders. With the turbo car, if he slows way down for somebody, it takes a bit of while to get back up to speed, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And now he's going to pass one of the only other turbo cars in the race, the Zakspeed car. But there again, you can see the incredible difference in performance of those two turbocharged cars. Now going through the long, fast right-hander leading onto the pit straight. And he's now got to pick off Riccardo Patrese in the leading Williams Judd. And he will have dispensed with pretty well all of that battling group.
Heavy traffic. And one of the differences in Formula One racing in 1988 as compared with 1987, the reduction in horsepower of the turbo cars because of the boost pressure reduction has apparently eliminated the need for pit stops for tires. There's less wheel spin, we're told, and that most of the drivers expect to go the distance today without making a stop for fresh rubber.
The other ironic thing is that by slowing the cars down, oh, there's somebody off. That looks like on the Ligiers to me. There's two cars off. Ligier nearly at rest, and is that Caffey? I think that's Alex Caffey in the Dallara.
He's got great eyes, David. He's okay, obviously.
Well, I'm cheating. I'm watching the Mexican monitor, which is bigger than ours. So there's a disappointed racing driver climbing out, walking through that sand trap, which obviously did the trick. His car didn't cross it. It stopped in the middle of it, which is what it's supposed to do before it runs into something solid. Right. And that is, I think that's René Arnoux, who obviously went off the track as well.
He's the oldest man in the race at 39. Yes, so that is.
Rejoins the race, and of course his car, as you noticed, was wingless. So he must have knocked that off on something. So that'll be Arnoux out. John Bisignano's in the pits, probably got a little bit more information on this action for us. John?
Well, actually, my information is about the non-action in the pits. Chris, you were talking about they expect to go without a tire stop here. Talking to Lee God, the managing director of Goodyear International Motorsports, he tells me very late in the race, any driver who damages his fronts, his Goodyear fronts, will have to come in. It could be as late as 6 to 8 laps to go, because once the tire goes off in the front, the understeering conditions here virtually make the cars undrivable. So right now, every driver out there thinks he can go the distance unless he makes a simple mistake, a wrong calculation, and damages the fronts, therefore inducing a great amount of understeer. And David, you know what a great amount of understeer can do on a last corner like this.
Okay, we'll be back for more of the race here in Mexico City after this commercial. Well, positions unchanged in the top 5 after 17 laps in Mexico. But from Indianapolis, startling news, a computer error and a wholesale revision of finishes behind the leader. Rick Mears' win stands at 144.809 miles an hour. But Al Unser Sr. has been moved to second place. Michael Andretti to third. Bobby Rahal to fourth. And Jim Crawford down to fifth place. And now here we've got a race for first place here with Alain Prost moving away from Ayrton Senna. Let's get down to the pits now, and John Bisignano.
We are standing in a bit of activity here. We have the March and, of course, the Ligier. René Arnoux came in with no rear wing. Actually, the brackets at the back of the gearbox were totally broken away. The March here, the rear engine cover is off, and they are working on that Judd engine. We'll keep you up to date with both developments with these teams.
And here we have our leader, Alain Prost, who has built almost a 6-second advantage over his teammate Ayrton Senna. Third place is still held by Gerhard Berger. Piquet in the Lotus is fourth. Alboreto in the Ferrari is fifth. Nakajima in the Lotus sixth. Eddie Cheever, Derek Warren, their Arrows are seventh and eighth. And the first of the non-turbo cars is Alessandro Nannini in that Ford engine Benetton car, holding down ninth place. And his teammate Terry Boutsen of Belgium is 10th in car 20.
And Alain Prost has just done the fastest lap of the race. This is actually one of those things. Prost is going to be really torn between cruising and driving very fast, because if you cruise too soon, it is easy not so much to lose concentration, but you do definitely get out of step. And of course that's sort of what happened to Ayrton Senna up at Monte Carlo just 2 weeks ago when he zapped into the guardrail. He was either cruising or trying to get away from Alain Prost, which he didn't need to do because he already had a 50-odd lap, 50-second advantage. Is that Nigel or is that Patrese just pulled in? I can't see the number and I can't see his helmet.
It's one of the problems in Formula One. The numbers on the cars are secondary to the sponsors. Prost's lead here is going to, if he stays out front, is going to pump his lead in the World Championship point standings. He has 24 points now to Berger's 14, Senna's 9, and Piquet's 8. 9 points to win. Mr. Prost is well on his way
getting out of his car.
Another championship. Yeah, it's a tough break for
Ricciardo. Was the fastest of the Williams cars too. He was leading Mansell by a long way. So Williams having a pretty desperate day here. Apparently their reactive suspension does not react very well to these bumps at this altitude. For some reason or other, the active suspension, of course, is supposed to be at its absolute best over the bumps, and for some reason or other here, they just couldn't make it work at all. And Nigel yesterday was very down in the mouth about it when we spoke to him, and going very slowly today, and of course his teammate Patrese already out. There we see Ayrton Senna swinging through those S's, no doubt biding his time. He doesn't exactly have to beat his brains out to beat his teammate. Obviously, he'd like to very much. Alain Prost, another fastest lap. Pretty good clip,
on his
too.
way here. Rubber's getting laid down on the circuit. You know, Lotus had the what they call the active suspension, and that name is now copyrighted. It cannot be used by anyone else. So that's why the suspension on the Williams cars is called reactive suspension. And that suspension has to operate on the oil pressure produced by the engine. So when the engine quits, the suspension quits as well.
Well, usually, of course, when the engine quits, you're not too worried about your suspension anyway. But Prost is really coming out of that fast turn 13 there, as you said earlier on, using all the road. Coming into this Para-Taldada, a very fast corner. And who are we seeing here now? There's Cheever and Warwick right together. Eddie Cheever and Derek Warwick, both in the USF&G Arrows cars, both turbocharged four-cylinder Megatron engines, and both running pretty well, but just at the moment, just out of the points, 7th and 8th. They've only got to pick up one more place, and they could both be in the points.
And Senna has now fallen to almost 8 seconds behind leader Alain Prost, who was really on rails today. Okay, let's go down to the pits, and John Bizignano.
Thank you, Chris. Ricardo Patrese, you look very warm. What took you out of this Mexican Grand Prix?
I had a problem. I had lost power in the engine mainly.
Let me ask you, you are such a fit individual. I've never seen you look so done in. Is the physical part of this race getting to some of these drivers out here? Are you finding it harder to go a long distance than you thought?
Well, I'm okay. I'm sweating a lot because of the heat and the altitude, but I'm okay. It was not a problem for fitness. Anyway, this one is one of the hardest races for sure, yes.
Not a problem with Ricardo Patrese, only the engine. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, John. 20 laps into the race, and Alain Prost still lead. We'll be back for more of the Mexican Grand Prix after these commercial messages.
One person who won't be there is yours truly, David Hobbs, but I will be joining the IMSA circuit on July the 3rd at Watkins Glen, driving with Jack Baldwin in the Peerless Automotive Corvette GTP. And what a race we've got there going, which we've just gone off of. We see Nelson Piquet, who's running all alone in 4th spot. We've been having a tremendous dice between the USF&G Arrows, but of course that has now gone away, and we're back to Nelson on his own here, going into those S's, again using all the road. A tremendous driver, because he's won 3 World Championships in his time, and he'd like to make another one, but I don't think he'll do it this year.
I think the pressure is on that Lotus team, David, because of the fact they have the same engines as the McLaren cars. Have not been matching the McLarens in performance. I think the drivers are under a lot of pressure. Nakajima, I know, certainly did a lot better today than he's ever done before. And here we have another one of the Williams
Nigel
cars.
Mansell's coming in.
Yeah, it's tough race.
Is he taking his belts off? Yeah, it looks like he's getting out. Steering wheel off, Nigel Mansell getting out. What a disappointing day. What a difference a year makes. This time last year, on the pole, won the race, the hero all around. This year, qualifies badly, struggles at the back, gets out, he catches a plane at 5 o'clock this afternoon, nobody will miss him.
That's true. What a difference an engine makes, really. They had the good engines last year.
Yeah, exactly. They had the Hondas, and
now
this year
they have the jet engines this year with no turbocharger, and he's going to have to really wait till next year before he gets a competitive car. In the meantime, the three-time world champion Nelson Piquet on camera at the moment, coming down under the Shell Bridge into a hard left-hander.
Being pursued there, of course, by Michele Alboreto in the second Ferrari, who's dropped way behind his teammate. He's some 30 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. And Alboreto, too, has to be asking himself some questions, because Gerhard Berger's the newcomer on the team, but is now consistently quicker than Michele, who's been with Ferrari for a number of years. And there are rumours of Michele moving on, but of course, unfortunately, moving on won't get rid of the problem that Berger seems to be a quicker driver.
That's correct. It's interesting, and I know I never heard a baseball player complain about his bat or a golfer complain about his clubs, but Rostov was always complaining about their cars.
Well, they don't always complain. You don't hear many complaints coming from Alain Prost or from Ayrton Senna. And the Ferrari drivers are getting there, and Piquet is having a better race today. I think one of the things that's really sparked up Piquet and Nakajima this week was their awful showing at Monte Carlo just 2 weeks back, when Nelson Piquet, the current world champion, qualified 11th and crashed on the first lap, and the second car, driven by Nakajima, didn't even make the race at all. And here they qualified very well. They qualified 3rd and 6th, and so they're putting on a much better display today, and I'm sure that Duncan Lee of Camel will be a much happier man today than he was 2 weeks ago, where he was thinking about going for a long one-way swim in the harbour, I heard.
Oh, that's true. Well, Alain Prost out in front is pulled out now to over 9 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, who is only 5 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger. We wonder if Berger may be closing a little bit on Senna at this point.
Well, it's certainly possible that he is.
Okay, here's our champion Nelson Piquet rounding the track, and let's go once again to the pits and our colleague John Bisignano.
Well, thank you, Chris. As you said, both the Williams cars are out of this Mexican Grand Prix for exactly the same problem. This has to be very disturbing to the engineers, crews, and of course the drivers. One heck of a lot of effort down the drain. There is some sort of electrical problem that is draining all the juice out of the battery. If you put another battery in and send them out, that battery would be flat again in just a number of few laps. So the cars, there's no decision for them to go out. Both drivers immediately got out of their vehicles. Flattened batteries is why, and they will not be back in the Grand Prix of Mexico today.
Thank you very much, John. For our American viewers, John is speaking European. A flat battery is a dead battery.
It's a dead battery, and you have batteries in torches in England too, and torches, of course, in America are flashlights. Here we see Alain Prost, and there we don't see Alain Prost. We see Gerhard Berger, who's now got the fastest lap at a 1 minute 20.54 seconds, which would have been a very good qualifying time for most of the field here. So that's a good racetrack, good race speed.
And he's moved up, he's gained a second on Ayrton Senna, so the battle may settle down here for second place. He may be able to split the McLarens if he can continue this pace. He's got this track figured out. Remember, he got his first Grand Prix win here 2 years ago when he's driving for Benetton, powered by a BMW. So he likes the track, and he knows it very well, and he's not afraid of it.
Well, it's true. If Berger has got his act together at this track, he loves this place. He does very well here. But if he and Senna start to really duke it out, we could have a problem with the tyres, and it could be a case of tyres changing. Talking about changing, there's a position change there. Isn't that Derek Warwick now leading Eddie Cheever? It is, in fact. Warwick has overtaken his teammate. Be interesting to see if he can pull out some now, which would indicate that Cheever had been holding him up previously.
Well, you talk about the tires. That turn that leads into the main straightaway in the pits, it's an Indy track type of turn. It's a perfect radius there, and the left front tire really takes a beating going around that corner at very high speeds.
So there we
see the USF&G Arrows running nose to tail, and we'll be back for more of the Mexican Grand Prix after these. Oh, we've got trouble here for Satoru Nakajima on the track. Off the track with a red-hot race car. A red-hot race car with a red-hot Honda engine, by the look of things, which is one of those things you don't often see, is a Honda blow up. It may be just something ancillary like an oil pipeline breaking, but Nakajima out of the race, and that'll move Derek Warwick up into 6th spot and Eddie Cheever into 7th in the two USF&G Arrows. So looks like a good result coming up for Derek Warwick again. Horse racing tomorrow is the who's who of thoroughbred racing in its 95th running. Tristan was the winner of the first cement race back in 1891. It's the first leg of the New York Handicap Triple that also includes the Suburban and Brooklyn Handicap. Past winners include Kelso, Buckmaster, Gallant Man, and two-time winner Forgo.
Okay, Prost leads Senna by 7.5 seconds. So Senna must be responding to the challenge by Gerber and closing in on the leader.
Well, I think he's responding, and I also think he's getting a severe psychological lesson here from the man that everybody thought was just a little bit slower than Senna, but today he certainly is not. Alain Prost, of course, if you win 30 Grand Prix, it's very hard to say that he's slower than anybody.
Oh, that's true. I just wonder when Alain Prost would decide personally to slow down on this racetrack here.
Not for a long time yet. He's done 30 laps. He's on about his 30th lap now. So there's still another 67 to go, depending on how many laps they decide to run this after the full start there. There we see the rest of the field. Thierry Boutsen locking up his front stairs. He goes into that very fast left-hander. He was trying to get round one of the Ligiers. I suspect that's Stefan Johansson he was trying to get round. There we see the leader coming up to lap Oscar Larori in the Eurobrunn. Larori, of course, at 33 and only his second Grand Prix, which is an incredibly advanced age to start Grand Prix racing. Right. But, of course, Larori is a very accomplished sports car driver.
You've run under Larori many times in racing in IMSA, David, and does Prost have anything to worry about?
Well, you better ask A.J. Foyt, because if you remember just a few weeks back on IMSA, we saw Larori and Foyt have a tremendous coming together at West Palm Beach. Both of them blaming the other. It'll be interesting to see how he lets Prost get by him here.
Prost is quite patient here. Now he uses the straightaway.
There is no way out here. Those S's are so tricky, so demanding, and so slippery if you get offline that there's just no point in trying to push your luck because you just can't get around.
He was behind Larori there for the better part of a lap. That would enable those behind him to close in on him.
That will certainly enable Senna to close in on him for sure. Although, in fact, the gap has stayed just about the same.
Well, we're getting close to the halfway mark of this event, and Alain Prost has been invincible so far.
He's in fact lost about 2 seconds on that lap trying to get round Larori, so it'll be interesting to see if he now picks him up again. Of course, Senna also has got to get round Larori, but lapping is also a very big part of luck. It depends just where you catch him. I mean, if Prost had caught Larori at the beginning of the straight, would have been no problem. Catching him right here, which is where he did, coming into those S's, of course, absolutely desperate.
He's got a succession of slower cars in front of him here. You can see two others directly from him there as they weave to the left and to the right.
That blue car he just passed, of course, was his old teammate, Stefan Johansson, who must be thinking, well, what about my luck? I could be driving the second one of those cars.
Well, that's right. So Alain Prost continues to lead the competition over Ayrton Senna by 8.3 seconds. And we'll be back for more of the Mexican Grand Prix after these commercial messages. Well, the traffic that Alain Prost encountered has allowed Ayrton Senna to close to 6.8 seconds. The margin, the interval has not been that narrow in several laps. What's more interesting is that Gerhard Berger is closing in on Ayrton Senna. About 4 seconds there, and Berger is really wild in traffic. That Ferrari seems to be handling extremely well.
Well, he's now coming up behind Stefan Johansson, and that little group of traffic that the two McLarens have already picked their way through. There we see the McLaren, there we see Alain Prost serenely going on his way. We saw him struggling to get past Oscar Larori, and I did point out that it depends where you catch these guys, and his teammate, Ayrton Senna, while we were away, did in fact catch him up right at the beginning of the straight.
Now, the minute Prost got clear, he set the fastest lap at a minute 19 and a fraction. Let's go down to the pits and John Visignano.
Thank you, Chris. Of course, we've seen this scene many times. The Marlboro team leading the Grand Prix. It's all engineered by Ron Dennis, the gentleman up there looking down the track. Ron Dennis actually started as a Brabham mechanic and now owns McLaren International. He has to be thinking a little bit about his concentration. Will he be able to maintain concentration with this sort of a lead? It has never been admitted, but what is suspect for the reason Ayrton Senna crashed in Monaco is the fact that he had such a lead, he lost just a millisecond of concentration and lost Monaco. David, maybe you have a comment on that.
Well, I did say earlier on that Prost had always got to watch out for that danger. Being in front on his own like this, you do have to really concentrate on what you're doing. But I think Ayrton Senna is close enough to him, unlike Monte Carlo, where Prost was nearly a minute behind Senna. Now Senna's only 6 seconds behind him, and I think that Prost is really on his toes, as is demonstrated by yet another fastest lap at 1:19.9, which must be pretty close to the lap record.
Well, look at the people there behind them. It's interesting that the size of the crowd here has come to the attention of the Mexican government that owns the grounds here, but the physical part of the track, the grants and so forth, are privately owned by some people, business people in Mexico who just love racing. But the significance of the race was made clear this week when the government issued several million postage stamps commemorating the Mexican Grand Prix, showing a face value of 500 pesos. That's about 45 cents. They're intended not only for general postal use here in Mexico, but for stamp collectors around the world as well, and racing fans too.
I think the government too, I had a tip-off this morning that the government are very interested in one of the American announcers before he leaves the country tonight, and there's probably going to be some sort of a body search at the airport on the way out.
Oh, I would think so. Right.
There we see Prost crossing the start finish line for the 35th time, I'm guessing here. Of course, we have some information, it's always a bit behind. Coming in there, we see Derek Warwick in the US F&G Arrows, followed by Eddie Cheever. In fact, Warwick has pulled out a little bit of a gap. Berger passing Boutsen. Boutsen, the leading contender in the no, he's not, I'm sorry. Nanine is the leading contender in the normally aspirated group, and that is pretty depressing when you think that both of those Benetton Fords have been lapped by the first three cars at least, at less than half distance. Pretty depressing.
The top 7 cars are in the leader's lap, and all behind are 1 or 2 laps more behind.
Of course, that's a bit of an addition to there. We see the Ferrari going through again, that fast left-hander. Very tricky corner this, because you've got to brake really hard going through it for this very sharp second gear right-hander, which is followed by another second gear right-hander here. You might see the old Ferrari just get a little bit out of shape there. A lot of power going through those back wheels at a slow speed.
You can see the left front tire, how much load it takes in these right-hand turns. You can imagine that the last corner of the track that you said was the fastest turn in all of Grand Prix racing is tough on these tires.
Well, of course, if these guys have to really push it and start to wear those tires out, it'll be interesting to see if either the Ferrari or one of those McLarens has to stop for a tire change, which, of course, would finish their day, to say the least, if they're the only ones that have to stop.
Berger right now is 4.1 seconds behind Senna, lying in 3rd place. Prost leads, Senna 2nd, Berger 3rd, Piquet is 4th, Alboreto is 5th, and Warwick is 6th. There's the point. There's the pit sign.
There you see exactly. It's -4, plus 28 over the guy behind him, which, of course, is Nelson Piquet. And I didn't see the bottom one. Typical racing driver can't read your own pit boards. I can't even read their pit boards. I'm sitting down in here.
No, it's interesting. You asked some of the drivers before the race about reading those pit signs. We asked Derek Warwick, do you have any trouble making out your pit signs?
He just lost the front there. Did you see the front get away from him?
Yep.
The front slipped,
Yep.
and he got offline. He held it well, though.
I wonder if that's the indication of a tire problem.
Well, it could be. I think he was just a little bit offline, probably. You see old Prosty here is putting his wheel over those curbs. He's not going to get that outside load-bearing wheel out into the dust and the rolled-up rubber, which is accumulating as the race goes on. He's going to make sure he's well online, so he just makes sure he clips those inside curves.
Well, you know, in oval track racing in the United States, so what you're talking about, the dust, oval track drivers refer to as the marbles, and I guess they are.
It's the marbles here, too, because they really do act like marbles. You get on that rubber, that rolled-up rubber, and I mean, you're absolute history. As we saw in qualifying yesterday when Julian Bailey got on it and just slid straight off the road.
Getting back to what I said earlier about
Senna.
the pit signs, Derek Warwick said no problem at all reading the pit signs. They're very easy to read. His teammate, Eddie Cheever, says he can't make them out.
Well,
that's a different answer.
No, well, actually, I must say that pit there we see Senna now lying 2nd in the race, and he has just turned in the fastest race lap, just pipping Alain Prost. It'll be interesting to see if Prost responds and tries to get it back again.
Well,
19.8, just a 1/10 of a second quicker than Prost's fastest lap.
Senna has moved up to within 6.3 seconds of Alain Prost, who may be realizing that the pace is too fast for his tires.
And there we just saw briefly the one of the McLarens lapping Eddie Cheever in the Megatron engined Arrow car, which is pretty awe-inspiring considering they're also turbocharged. Nelson Piquet being hotly pursued there by Michele Alboreto. That's a race for 4th and 5th. Piquet lying 4th, Alboreto 5th. He's only just 2 seconds behind, just over 2 seconds behind. He's definitely making ground on Piquet, who really wants to hold on to that spot.
You know, in Indianapolis, David, the drivers talk about the dirty air kicked up by the car in front of them, making their own car in the back less stable. But years ago, drafting was a plus. Now here, I guess it's a minus.
Well, of course, most of the drafting here goes on the straight, so the dirty air doesn't matter much as long as you've got a hole of air to run through. That's fine. Of course, Indianapolis has those ultra-high-speed corners, and the same applies in Formula One. When we go to Silverstone in just a few weeks' time, there's going to be a lot of close drafting there and some extremely high-speed corners and not too clever to follow people too closely behind there, because you do lose a lot of downforce as the air is taken away from these cars, and they really rely on that air to hold them down on the road, both the air that goes over the top of the car and the air that goes under. So if you get into an empty air spot that's already a hole been created by the car in front, you definitely lose downforce, and it can have some pretty interesting consequences sometimes.
Okay, here's Michele Alboreto moving in now on Nelson Piquet. You know, Alboreto is not denying the rumors that he's unhappy at Ferrari and that he may move on to another team, perhaps Williams next year. But what's been tough for Alboreto, an Italian driving for an Italian team, is to have Berger named the #1 driver of that two-car team. That's got to be a come-down, because for years Alboreto was the #1. Now here Piquet is slowed down by a slower car, and here comes Alboreto.
That's unfortunate. I say unfortunate. It's actually Andrea De Cesaris. So we'll have to see how gentlemanly Andrea is to let these two guys go through, because they're coming onto about the third longest straight here under the Pirelli bridge. Piquet, of course, is already there, slips by. We're coming up to that fast left-hander, and Alboreto has got left behind here. So now he could have to follow De Cesaris all the way through those S's.
Well, it's one Italian leading another Italian. It could mean one of two things: I'll let you through, or I'll never let you through.
Well, probably the latter. And this, of course, has given Nelson Piquet another breather. He'll be very glad to see that in his mirror. And of course, will now try and really pull out a few seconds, which will give him another 5, 6, or 7 laps breathing room, and hopefully he'll repeat the same process again.
Well, this is interesting, because Alboreto is giving De Cesaris plenty of room here.
But there's nowhere to go. You can't go too far on the outside. But this is a great race going on here, and we're going to be back with more of this action from Mexico as we see Nelson Piquet, the current world champion, leading Alboreto
the Mexican Grand
here in
Prix
Mexico.
after these messages. Okay, it's 7.5 seconds, the interval between leader Alain Prost, who has been out front since the drop of the flag, or the changing of the light, I should say. Berger is third, Piquet fourth, Alboreto fifth, and Warwick sixth. They're the point getters so far today.
And there we see Gerhard Berger going into those tricky S's and about to put a lap down, put Eddie Cheever down a lap. Eddie Cheever running 7th. So here we've got third place car putting, gosh, that's all rubbish blown across the track there, a lot of garbage of some sort.
I can't imagine where that came from.
It looks like styrofoam cups or something.
Right, apparently one of the collectors must have thrown a bag out there, it blew away or something. Now what about when a car runs over that?
Boy, that'll get your attention. I tell you, suddenly confronted by a whole bunch of blowing litter, you wouldn't know just how solid it was.
Well, you know, there's two aspects of that. One, running over it, you could slip, and secondly, get in your radiators and overheat your engine.
Well, that could be a very distinct possibility to get inside the radiator intakes, and the turbocharged engines, of course, have 4 lots of radiators, oil and water, and, of course, the intercooler for the engine, so for the air temperature for the engine. Well, there we see Derek Warwick going to that turn 1. The Solana section, that's named after Moises Solana, who was a very well-known and respected Mexican race driver. And exiting that Solana section, they pick up speed as they go through there. They arrive at about 205, brake down to about 70, and then by the time they weave through right, left, right, and on the last right-hander, they're back up to about 100 miles an hour.
David, do you really ever get used to going 200 miles an hour? You're going to go to Le Mans in a couple of weeks, and that back straightaway there is more than a 200-mile straightaway. You comfortable down that straightaway hour after hour?
Well, sometimes you do think about it a little bit, but racing cars get up and down there so quickly that it's not like doing 200 miles an hour in a street car where you have a long time to think about it because it takes so long to get there. Race cars leap up and down pretty quickly, so you often do like 180. There we see Nelson Piquet going down that straight, coming to the Estadio section. Behind him is in the blue car, that'll be Stefan Johansson, and Piquet here is being wound in by Alboreto, who he got a bit of daylight between there because Alboreto's still behind Johansson.
Well, you see, he was right there behind him a few laps ago. Now he's 2 seconds behind thanks to the slower car. He's working his way back. He's got to polish off Johansson, and as he pulls up again on Piquet, the next thing you know, there's be more slower cars.
So Piquet's had a couple of lucky breaks. First of all, De Cesaris got between them, and now it looks like Johansson, as Piquet manhandles his car through those S's, using all the road again, as you said earlier on, and trying to get the best out of this Lotus chassis. Lotus, of course, had an incredible record in Formula One racing over the years. Second in wins, most poles, all sorts of great statistics, but they're not having a great year this year, even though they got the Honda engine, which is the quickest engine out there at the moment. I see that Alain Prost has again taken the fastest lap too.
Well, he never lets up, this guy, Prost. David, you've got a theory about how this racing should be changed, and that is to let everybody go off at the same weight. In other words, a great big driver like Philippe Streff, for example, is at a distinct disadvantage. Patrese is one of the heaviest drivers, and Prost is one of the lightest drivers. Do you really think that the cars should be ballasted so that they weigh the same for everyone?
Well, I do really, because weight saving has become a major expenditure on these cars. And a Grand Prix team will spend probably somewhere around about £20,000 sterling, or nearly $40,000 a pound, to save weight. And it seems acutely unfair to me that a very good driver like a Philippe Streff, who weighs 25 pounds more than Alain Prost, shouldn't have some sort of benefit. It just seems unfair that by a pure quirk of nature that a little guy gets, you know, a $200,000 advantage. If you're going to have these cars weighed absolutely to the last ounce, which they do, I think they should weigh them with the driver.
Well, that's interesting. Remember, you heard it here first. Okay, there's our leader, Alain Prost, 6.7 seconds ahead of his teammate Ayrton Senna. So, okay. Nelson Piquet, we talked about him. Here he is right here. We asked Piquet before the race, do you have extra confidence after past successes?
Well, after 10 years, I think I did well in nearly every circuit. But of course, I like here. It's a quick circuit. It's a little bit bumpy still, but it's better than many another circuit.
Well, there's a man who owns his own Learjet and so forth. Should he complain about bumps?
So I don't suppose he complain about too much in life at the moment, really. Well, can't understand a word he says, but other than that, it's fine. And there we see him working his way through the S's. And I think John Bisignano's got something for us down in the pits. John, what have you got for us?
Thank you, David. We are right at that critical stage where Lee Gogg said that some of these cars may be coming in for tires. Now, we've been going up and down this pit lane because many teams have been what we call set up for a change. That's when they roll the tires out, take off the tire blankets, and the mechanics are ready to change tires. That's because the drivers have been saying, we're coming in. Now, the driver slows down for a lap, and the tires start feeling better. So we have to remember that when these tires are hot, they can go off very quickly. But if the driver does a couple slow laps, he can regain that grip in the tire and remain out on the track and elect. It's his call to elect to keep on racing.
Thank you, John. Alain Prost, 6 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. Berger third, Piquet fourth, Michele Alboreto, all 1 lap ahead of everybody. We'll be back for more after the... Round 5 of the Grand Prix circuit comes up in Montreal in 2 weeks on June 12th. And then it's the Unichem Grand Prix in Detroit on June 19th. Across the Atlantic to France on July the 3rd, and then it's on to Great Britain for a race at Silverstone on the 10th of July. The Hockenheim circuit will host this circus on the 24th of July, and then it's the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest on August the 7th. The famous Spa circuit in Belgium next on August 28th, followed by the Italian Grand Prix at the famous Autodromo di Monza on the 11th of September, and then it's down to sunny Portugal on September 25th, over to Spain and Estoril, or rather Jerez in the wine country on October 2nd, and then it's to Asia for the Japanese Grand Prix on October 30th, and the finale in Australia on November 13th, said to be the largest spectator draw in all of Grand Prix racing. So there's lots more on ESPN as far as the Grand Prix circus is concerned.
There we see Derek Warwick in the USF&G Arrow. He's been wound in by his teammate Eddie Cheever. I think part of that was that he was trying to help Berger get by. There we see Philippe Streff in the pits, obviously having a problem. I just noticed him going past here out of the window 1 lap ago, so he's done a slow lap and come in, and now they're looking at his car.
He's got the engine off, the hood off that Ford engine. The Cosworth Ford engine is used by many of the cars in these events. The Benettons have the updated version that's called the DFR. And right now, all of the normally aspirated cars are 1 lap or more behind, with the top 5 finishers having lapped the rest of the field. Derek Warwick in 6th place has gone 1 lap down, so Alain Prost leads by 6.2 seconds over Senna. Let's go down to John Bisignano in the pit.
Streif in the pits. He is having a mechanical problem with the engine. They have worked on the black box. The black box contains all of the electrical situation, engine management, and so forth. The engine is started. Streif is ready to go out of these pits. And he certainly does it in a very grand style. Let's see if they fix it. It was a very quick stop for that type of problem.
And he didn't change tyres. I did think that maybe while he was there, because there's no rule on mechanics over the wall in Formula One, they can use an army if they want to. I thought that while he was there, they might have changed his tyres, as they did not. One assumes that tyre wear or tyres going off probably is not going to be a problem here today, even though it is pretty hot.
You know, before the season began, everyone was worrying about the turbo cars when the boost pressure was cut from 4 atmospheres to 2.5. Would have trouble getting to the checkered flag on the fuel allowed, 150 liters or 39.6 gallons, cut from last year's allowance of 195 liters or 51.5 gallons. But you know, Jackie Oliver, the Arrows team, told me that they've got their fuel mileage so increased that they went off with 37 gallons today, 2 less than they needed to save weight.
It is one of the things that racing, of course, has always tried to do is to bring in high-tech innovations that can ultimately be used on street cars. And I do think that the advances that have been made in fuel management technology in racing cars will find its way to street cars, and we'll find that our street cars will benefit enormously from the technical exercises that people like Honda and Porsche and Fiat through Ferrari have put into their racing programs, because these cars do average an incredible high mileage considering the speeds they're doing. I mean, they're going to use 30 gallons and 180 odd miles, averaging 125 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's true. Ferrari's new car supposedly has one computer that controls the electronic engine management system, the transmission, and the suspension. We anxious to see that when it finally gets to the track.
Of course, they are a bit of a nightmare. You take the hood off these cars. We haven't really had a good look. You take the hood off, and the thing is an absolute maze of wires, black boxes, senders, chip holders, controllers. There we see Thierry Boutsen. Now, Thierry Boutsen is in the second fastest, normally atmospheric car, right, being passed by that turbocharged car for, is that the first or the second time? Not having a good day again as our Thierry from Belgium.
That's right. It's the second time he's gone a lap down. He's in 9th position overall, so it shows you the superiority, particularly at these high altitudes. At sea level, why the normally aspirated cars aren't really that much at that much of a handicap. All right, we asked Alain Prost, the man that's out in front now.
Whoa! There we see a bit of inter-team dueling there as they go into turn 1. Old Eddie Cheever giving a real...
the meeting of the Arrows motorhome after the race should be interesting.
Derek Warwick there giving him a very hard time. They're both putting a lap on Oscar Larori. I suppose he balked. We didn't see how that started, but we saw how it nearly finished. It nearly finished with both US F&G cars in the fence. Eddie Cheever still behind his teammate, no doubt cursing rather than
It looked like they touched there for a moment. Derek Warwick told me before the race he's going up to Milwaukee next Sunday to watch an IndyCar race, and he said, I see my career going in that direction.
Well, just then he probably saw his whole life going in that direction, just for a brief moment.
That's right. Well, Alain Prost continues to lead, 6 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. And before the race, we asked him if the McLaren cars can keep up the pace.
Confident because the car is very good, and I think we can win almost everywhere. But not very, very confident in the fact that the car is so good that we can almost win every race, and it's going to be difficult to fight against Ayrton along the season, because at the most you can expect one driver could win 11 races. In fact, he will get 99 points, so being second sometimes, so try to be a little bit more safe. It's not very useful.
Well, that was Alain Prost, the leader, and he just knocked off another fastest lap, 1:18.907 seconds, and that's faster than all but the first 4 cars qualified for this race. So he has really got that car balanced right for the competition.
So much for tyre wear, fuel consumption, and everything else that everybody told me before the race that the McLarens were really sick about was their fuel consumption, their tyre wear. Well, old A. Prost is called the Professor, and I don't think there's any worries for him. Here we see that tremendous race still going on between Derek Warwick and his teammate Eddie Cheever. There'll be probably words said, and I think John Bisignano has got some information for us down in the pits. John, what have you got?
Right, David, we have the leader of the Arrows racing team, Jackie Oliver. Jackie, on the monitor behind you, you just saw your 2 drivers almost eliminate each other from the race. How do you feel about that?
Well, there are no team orders. They're both competing drivers. I think if there were team orders, I doubt whether either one would obey them anyway. The only concern the team have, of course, is not an individual concern like Eddie or Derek have in the cockpit, but a concern for the team to finish both cars. So if they hit each other, the chances are one of them might knock one of the other off. And that's really not what we want, but I've got no control over it at the moment.
You say you have no control. Can you give them an easy on the pit board or on the radio? Tell them to just relax a little bit, folks?
They would ignore it.
Jackie Oliver, unfortunately, out of control on the team when his drivers were on the track.
Well, you can see, despite the fact that his car's running 6th and 7th, he's not smiling.
He ought to know about those ignoring, too, because I've seen Jackie Oliver ignore a few pit signals in his way. There you see the Honda building at the end of the main straight.
One of the grandstands here at the Autodromo Hermanos Ricardo and Pedro Rodriguez, and we'll be back for more in 1 minute. Stock car fans, NASCAR's Budweiser 500 comes up next Sunday, June 5th at noon, Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, live on ESPN from Dover Downs International Speedway in Dover, Delaware. Three-time Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt leads the field on NASCAR's Monster Mile at the Dover Downs International Speedway. America's top stock car drivers take on the challenge of the Budweiser 500 Sunday, June 5th at noon Eastern, live on ESPN. Dover Downs is a high-bank, 1-mile super track known for its bumper-to-bumper excitement and physical demands on drivers. Last year, Davey Allison took the checkered flag just ahead of Bill Elliott. The best in NASCAR racing will compete again this season, including Davey Allison, Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt, Neil Bonnet, Richard the King Petty, and Darrell Waltrip.
Well, while we were away then, Alain Prost did another lap record in 1:18.8 seconds, which is 125.8 miles an hour, which is only just over half a second slower than he qualified and would have put him comfortably in 4th place on the grid. So there's a guy who's really got his act together this Sunday afternoon here in Mexico as Alain Prost heads serenely on to what could well be his 31st win, but there's a long way to go yet.
Well, Alain Prost is about to rub it in Ferrari here. He's coming up behind Kelly Alboreto. He should catch him in another 10 laps or so and put him a lap down. Alboreto holds 5th position, and he's in the same lap with Sweeter, but I don't think for long.
And Alboreto, of course, is still having his own personal battle with this guy here. That's Nelson Piquet, the current world champion, in his Camel Lotus. And every time Berger gets to within striking distance, something ghastly happens to him in traffic, and he gets left out. I keep saying Berger, I mean Alboreto. Keeps getting left out, and it's going to happen again because Nelson Piquet got around Oscar Larori there, although it won't happen here because they're just coming onto the main straight, and Berger with his turbocharged Ferrari should easily dispose of the Euro-Brun Ford down this main straight. There we see Alboreto signals, 2.5 behind Piquet, and however many he was in front of Derek Warwick, who's running in 6th spot now.
And with 13 laps to go. Well, we had asked Kelly Alboreto before the race how he finds the track here in Mexico this year and whether or not it's hard to drive.
Same than last year. Still bumpy. Only the street lane is a little bit better, but the biggest problem in the high-speed corner is still there. There is a big hole, and it's very, very difficult, very hard to drive here.
Now, Formula One racing is truly international, but there's an even dozen Americans that make the full circuit this year, headed by driver Eddie Cheever, Goodyear's Lee Gogg, Lotus tire man Kenny Zemansky, the head Camel man Duncan Lee, McLaren designer Steve Nichols, photographer John Blakemore, National Speed Sport News correspondent Dan Knutson, Walt Stannard of the Zaxby team, and from ESPN, producer Jeff Hallis, coordinator Doug Blackman, and announcer John Bisignano, and yours truly. 12 Americans on the circuit.
Pretty rum crew, all in all, I'd say. And there we see old Nelson Piquet going around that Paratalda, one of the fastest corners in Formula One racing. But of course, made particularly difficult because he's caught up a little bit there. You see, he's seeing that 1.6. Now he's getting the bit between his teeth. Nelson Piquet swoops around that Minardi, though, going into turn 1. And that could well botch young Alboreto's plans just a little bit as they come into this twisty section.
The bottom line on the pit board showed the number of laps to go, 12. It's a bit of a needle, isn't it, David?
It is. He's only got 12 laps to catch up, and every time he gets to within striking distance, he just gets pushed back. If he can't get round that Minardi here, he could be in a whole heap of hurt because there'll only be 11 laps next time past that signal board for him.
And the interval is less than 2 seconds between the two drivers.
Piquet, and we still can't see the following car as he swings through those S's using up all road. Yes, I think the Ferrari got round him. The Ferrari is once again behind Piquet, but lost a little bit of time there. We can't tell exactly how much of this picture, but he did lose a little bit of time as they came into the S's.
Well, Piquet is putting his left front wheel up on the curb there. Doesn't seem to be getting at all tired here as this race wears on. We'll be back for more of the Mexican Grand Prix after these commercials.
And there on that long shot to the main straight, you saw Piquet, who's lying in 4th, Alboreto is in 5th, and right behind them, Alain Prost, who's about to put both of those cars a lap down, which will be terrible for Nelson Piquet. Has the same power unit as this guy here. And just at the back of the picture, we saw Ayrton Senna, his teammate in the other Marlboro McLaren Honda, also homing in to try and put those other guys a lap down.
Now, this is going to be difficult for Prost because these are the fastest cars that he will have lapped during the course of this race. It's interesting to watch how precise, how careful, or how bold he is when that time comes.
Well, the thing about Alain Prost is he is bold. I mean, he's got what it takes everywhere on his anatomy to go as fast as he needs to. But he's also extremely careful and very, very clever, thinks ahead, works things out. And I think his teammate Ayrton Senna is heading the same way. Incredibly dedicated to racing. Makes an odd mistake, obviously, threw away the Monte Carlo Grand Prix, but still very, very switched on guy.
You know, on the track we have Piquet, who's a Brazilian, Alboreto, who's an Italian, and Prost, who's a Frenchman. There are 31 drivers from 12 countries permitted to try for the 26 open positions at each Grand Prix. Italy sends 10, France 5, Great Britain 4, Brazil 3.
Nelson Piquet's popped another motor. Well, I say another motor. He's popped his Honda engine, which, as I said before, is a pretty unusual thing to happen. But he's pulling off at the end of the straight, so poor old Nelson Piquet's day is done.
A tough break for Lotus, I'll tell you that. Getting back to the international listing, Spain has 2 and 1 each from Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Japan, Sweden, West Germany, and the United States. Truly international.
There we see our leader, Alain Prost, in the number 11 on the McLaren, about to do the dirty on Alboreto, who was, until not long ago, recognized as the team leader for Ferrari, but apparently has been demoted to number 2 behind Berger.
This will put Eddie Cheever in the 6th position into the points, which will please Jackie Oliver Noah, having both of his cars in the point-paying positions. In international Formula One racing, only the top 6 finishers get points.
He nearly had them both in the crowd just a few minutes ago.
Right.
Prost winding him now. It'll be interesting to see how well Prost does through these S's. I think the McLaren handles incredibly well. Not only has it got more power, but it does handle unbelievably well. You don't see Prost or Senna using anything like the amount of road that these other guys do. I mean, they use all the road, but they don't use the extra bit in the Ferrari.
Okay, before the race got underway, we had a chance to chat with Alain Prost, the man who has led this event from the green light, and asked him if he liked the Mexico track.
I don't like very much the bumpy part, but this kind of track is not bad. I like when it's fast and slow part and fast part. I like very much.
And he's increased his interval over his teammate Ayrton Senna to 8.36 seconds. Seems to just have total control of this race, and the McLarens are on their way to dominating the 4th straight Grand Prix of the 1988 season.
With just a few laps left to run, about 9 laps left to go, he doesn't seem to be showing. His head is still very upright in that cockpit. This is the sort of circuit that really gets the old G-load going, and obviously your head triples in weight. They go around that fast right-hand corner, and his head's up there pretty upright, so he doesn't look as if he's suffering from any G-loads in this car.
David, what do you think he makes a year?
Well, he's supposed to get about $6 million retainer. So if you take some of that away or add a bit to it, I would say that Alain Prost does make himself $6 or $7 million a year.
Well, Formula One drivers are among the highest paid, and that connection, 8 drivers. Italy's Michele Alboreto, Peccarello, Ginzani, and Patrese, along with Brazil's Piquet, and Ayrton Senna, and Boutsen of Belgium, and Stefan Johansson of Sweden, and our own Eddie Cheever, all live in Monte Carlo, where there are no income taxes. And we'll be back for more of the Mexican Grand Prix after these words. ESPN will bring you the next stop on the Formula One World Tour. when the best in the world travel north of the border to Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is one of the most beautiful and competitive tracks on the tour, and ESPN is proud to bring you live coverage of Round 5 of the Formula One World Driving Championship on Sunday, June 12th at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time. David, I've been watching Alain Prost in that number 11 car. I think the McLarens have got some kind of secret suspension gimmick. That car doesn't seem to feel the bumps the way the other cars do.
Well, they say their package is unbelievably correct. I mean, the power, the drivers, the suspension, the handling. There is no doubt about it. I don't think they have any magical revolutionary type suspension.
Look at it there, just so smooth. Watch the others.
But they've just put the package together right. They're damping, they're springing, and everything is obviously just dead on. And of course it shows. Every single race they go to, they're by far the fastest. And but they have nothing magical in there, I don't think.
Well,
unless they found a new shock absorber system or something.
Prost 1:18.608 was the fastest lap of the race so far, and that's faster than everybody in the race qualified except the top 3 drivers, and the race isn't over yet. He's really getting around here beautifully well in that car.
And I guess he's down to about 4 laps to go now, and is under no pressure at all now from his teammate Ayrton Senna, who's decided, I guess, that second is better than no place, and is obviously taking the pressure off a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if Prost does slow up. Just these 3 laps to go as they cross the line. It'll be interesting to see if Prost does slow up just a little bit. We don't see Senna coming into the picture. There's Senna just coming into the picture now, but that's a very long lens, and he's quite a long way behind.
Last time around, it was 8.2 seconds, but I don't think, if you remember at Imola, on the last lap, Senna slowed way down, and Prost came up within 2 seconds. It was a 6-second closure on the last lap.
Well, I think some of that was fuel. The fuel consumption here is no problem because of the altitude. The engines make a lot less horsepower, and they just use a lot less fuel. Fuel consumption is no problem here. It says here this car will now come to a grinding halt with no fuel.
Well, Ayrton Senna leads the world standing going into this race. He'll get 9. I'm sorry, Prost. He'll get 9 points more today, and it looks like the World Championship for 1988 may well be decided early. If it finishes the way it does now, Prost will lead with 33 points. Berger would be second with 18. Senna third with 15. Alboreto fourth with 9, and Warwick fifth with 8.
It'll be a good result for Warwick. Now we're going to see our leader come up on these 2. That's Gabriel Tarquini in the yellow car and Stefan Johansson in the Ligier racing for a spot. They're racing for the 14th and 15th spot. And they're going to be concentrating on their own battle. And if old Stefan pulls out here to get the slipstream now, I think he saw the McLaren. Look at the McLaren, they're giving them so much room.
Yeah.
And Stefan also duffs up Tarquini as they go into that hairpin. The Moises Solana right-hander at the end of the straight. And now Prost really will be trying to cruise at this stage. He'll be very, very careful. I mean, he is not going to get within 100 feet of anybody if he can possibly avoid it. And he's going to keep those all 4 tyres on the pavement. He doesn't want to pick up any punctures or flat tyres at this time in the race. And he'll be easing off a little bit to just make sure the engine goes the distance. And this is the time when you can lose concentration and stick the thing in the fence, because you're cruising, you've got it made, the whole thing's over and done with in your own mind, and the next thing is you suddenly realise you're still doing 190 miles an hour. And it's a time when a driver has to really concentrate, and I think that Alain Prost has proven over the years that he has exceptional powers of concentration. To have as many wins as he's had, 31, he's now clearly the highest ever point scorer, clearly the highest ever winner of races, Grand Prix races that is, and I can't see how anybody's ever going to match his record of 30 wins. The only guy who's in there with any sort of a chance is Ayrton Senna, and I don't think even he is going to get to the magic 30, let alone 31, which will be in Prost's hands in just 1 lap more.
That's it. So Alain Prost with 8.3 seconds over Ayrton Senna. Gerhard Berger way back in 3rd place. Michele Alboreto, Berger's teammate, 4th. And 5th place, Derek Warwick. And 6th place, Eddie Cheever, all a lap down, will be the top finishers, providing nothing happens on this last lap. And David, you picked Ayrton Senna to win, and John, you picked Gerhard Berger to win, and old Chris picked Alain Prost to win.
Well, I picked Alain Prost at Imola, and Senna came first, and he came second, and this time I thought I'd give Senna the benefit of the doubt. And they've got it the other way around, but I notice you don't have Senna in there at all, Christopher. Why is that now?
Well,
we could...
I wonder, you've got PK Felicier.
Aren't you the fellow that says winning is everything?
Winning is everything in racing, yeah. When I come second in races, people say, that's great, and then I say it's absolutely useless.
Okay, there's our leader, Alain Prost of France, and number 11, Marlboro McLaren, a magnificent machine, coming around to take the 11th Grand Prix of Mexico at the Autodromo Hermanos Ricardo and Pedro Rodriguez. It's been a great day. The rain has held off. The clouding up, however, we've had rain every day here except when the cars were on the track. And there's the flag, and it's official, or until such time as the cars pass technical inspection. 4 straight for Marlboro McLaren, and there's talk that maybe every race of the 1988 season might well be won by this all-dominant team.
Well, the way things are going at the moment, there is absolutely no way anybody else is going to win a race this year unless these two have a major coming together in the race and knock themselves out, or they both have freak blow-ups. The engines, those Honda engines, seem to be unbelievably reliable. The cars themselves seem to be almost unbreakable, and really, I can't see anybody else winning a race this year unless, as I say, something diabolical happens to these two. No one's got the technology to at least catch up with these. John Bisignano's down in the pitch with Crichton Brown. John?
Thank you very much, David. Crichton Brown, Managing Director of McLaren International, a great smile on your face. You're making this a little boring for us, Crichton.
I'm sorry, John, say that again.
You're making this a little boring for us.
John, it's not boring for us, I can assure you.
When they're running out there that far in advance, every heartbeat that goes through your body, you must be wondering, how are they going to hold it together? But the facility that you people have come up with this year is absolutely amazing. Where are you getting the advantage? Chassis, engine, or the whole package?
John, it's a combination of a lot of things. I like to think we've got the best chassis, I think we have the best engine, and I believe we've got the 2 best drivers, and hopefully the team to back them up with. And it's a combination of many things, but we're very, very happy with the result today, I can tell you.
Your 2 drivers, they are the most competitive in the world. What's the ambiance like between them after 4 Grand Prix?
It's very, very good, John. I'm happy to say that they're working together exceedingly well, very, very smoothly. They get on well together as individuals, and we have no complaints at all. And the relationship is getting better and better all the time.
Well, with another 1-2 finish, I don't think you have any complaints about anything, Crichton. Congratulations, best of luck in Canada and in Detroit.
Thanks, John. Very nice to see you, and we'll be there in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you very much, John. And, of course, we mentioned the security here. In 1970, the track was full of people at this point. We'll be back for more of the post-Grand Prix activities after these commercial messages. So in 4 races on the Formula One circuit, there has not been a single pass of a running leader for the lead. David?
Well, I don't think that's particularly important, Chris. What is important is the message that McLaren Honda are putting across to the rest of the field. And I think the worst message, or the strongest message anybody got today, was that received by Senna from his teammate Prost. It must have been a pretty sobering day for young Ayrton Senna. John, what do you think?
Well, I hate to belabor the McLaren situation, but their dominance is outrageous right at the moment. And Prost, I think you said earlier, David, who is ever going to catch the man on number of wins? I'd like to say to everyone in the United States that this Grand Prix circuit goes on to Canada and the Anycam race in Detroit. If there's any way you can see one of these things live, try and make it to either Montreal or Detroit. They're both great venues.
Okay, on our Pick 6 things, your host, Chris Economaki, got 23 points. David Hobbs, my booth associate, 20 points, and John Bisignano Pitts, 16 points in this tough battle for the season picking. So here we are at Mexico saying goodbye to a lovely town and great weather at the moment, and we'll be seeing you all from the Canadian Grand Prix of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal for round 6 of the World Driving Championship, the International Formula One circuit. It's a 16-race series, and ESPN will be bringing you just about all of these races, wherever they may be, and we hope that you find our coverage of this competition enjoyable. Remember, it was Prost and Senna and McLaren's 1 and 2, Berger and Alboreto and Ferraris 3 and 4, Warwick and Cheever and Arrows 5 and 6, and Nannini and Boutsen and Benettons 7 and 8. And so that's it from the Mexican Grand Prix at the Autodromo Hermanos Ricardo and Pedro Rodriguez. Chris Economaki saying goodbye for David Hobbs and John Bisignano.